Good afternoon. I'm Matt, and I'm Head of Software Engineering at Focusrite Innovation. We build audio products where hardware and software have to meet perfectly, which means collaboration isn't really optional for us, it's core to our success. One thing to be clear on as I open the talk is that this isn't a solved problem, certainly not for us, and it isn't a problem I'm solving on my own either. We're still very much on a journey. And this is coming from right in the middle of the work. But from where we are now, what we've learned is that great software isn't built by great individuals, it's built by great teams. So a quick show of hands, how many people in the room are currently part of an organization with multiple people, maybe already part of a team within that organization? Cool. And how many people in here work alone, maybe for themselves or work in an isolated role within their organization? Okay, cool. So this talk is hopefully going to be of use to you. Maybe it will give you something useful to think about as you begin looking to put teams together, maybe look to improve your teams, or simply give you a different point of view on how you're working right now. There is a myth in the world of engineering of the hero engineer. It's often fueled by media portrayals of singular innovators like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. But this often ignores the fact that these figures were and are supported by vast dedicated teams of engineers and specialists. In my time as a software professional, none of the complex projects I have worked on have succeeded due to the isolated efforts of a single individual. It's more often than not because the team involved in the development of the product wasn't aligned. Sometimes the causes are unclear goals, weak strategy, or missing skills. Sometimes it's bad bets, architectural fragility, or market shifts. What has been consistent, though, is that where teams are strong and aligned, they are better at exposing and handling problems early. This is something that the hero engineer can't mask, no matter how quickly they ship in isolation. For starters, modern technology projects involve intricate challenges spanning multiple disciplines. Examples are mechanical, electrical and software, engineering, design, product. And across and within these disciplines, there are diverse skill sets and perspectives that no single individual can possess. Organizations reliant on heroes therefore face significant scalability issues and become brittle. If the star coder leaves or is unavailable, the whole system can fall apart due to a lack of shared knowledge and documented process. It's what we call the bus factor. The knowledge hoarding creates bottlenecks and hinders the overall growth and development of other team members. The cultures that form around heroes often reward immediate firefighting and quick hacks over solid architecture and long-term planning and sustainable practices, which ultimately increases technical debt and future risks. So, if individual heroics aren't the answer, what is? We require extensive collaboration, interdisciplinary teamwork, and robust systems to ensure sustainable and successful outcomes. Let's talk about what actually makes a high-functioning team, because it is never accidental, it isn't magic, it's designed. As you can imagine, much research exists in the area of teamwork. Decades of practices and observations tell us that great teams share a few essential conditions. You can spot them anywhere: agile squads, research labs, and in creative studios. If you want to see some of this research or learn more about what I'm talking about, I can recommend you look at Hackman's Conditions for Team Effectiveness and Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So what are these conditions? Well, I think there's 6 key conditions I want to share with you today. And we'll start with: a team needs stable membership, clear boundaries, and interdependence. A team with these knows who's in, stays together long enough to build rhythm, and depends on each other to succeed. Without stable membership, trust can't form. When everyone's half in, half out, or on a side quest somewhere, alignment evaporates and accountability fades. A team needs the right mix of people. It needs the right mix of skills and teaming ability. That is, people who are technically strong and can collaborate under pressure. Skill diversity drives creative tension. Teaming ability turns that tension into progress instead of politics. A team needs clarity of purpose. So everyone knows why the work matters and what success looks like. The purpose is motivating, clear, and consequential. If purpose is vague, teams can't commit. They hedge. Clear purpose drives energy coherence and faster decisions. A sound structure is needed by the team. This gives them the team clarity on how work happens, what the roles are, the norms, the processes that make coordination smooth and not bureaucratic. When roles are, and expectations are vague, accountability dissolves. Structure turns good intent into dependable execution. A team needs a supportive environment. Teams need access to the right tools, information, and rewards that reinforce shared success, not heroics. When systems reward individual output, collaboration fractures. When they reward collective outcomes, teamwork becomes the default. Finally, coaching and reflection. High-performing teams build in space to learn as they go through coaching, reflection, and honest feedback loops. Without reflection, teams repeat mistakes and lose trust. With it, they strengthen relationships, decisions, and pace. So, to quickly recap here, if you think back to the strongest team you've ever worked with, I bet all of these things were present, even if you never named them. When teams struggle, it's rarely because people don't care or aren't skilled. It's because the conditions for teamwork haven't been designed. Without clear membership, purpose, or structure, trust erodes, conflict turns unhealthy, and accountability fades. But when you design those conditions deliberately, so clarity, stability, purpose, structure, and support, you remove the need to fix behaviours. The environment does the heavy lifting for you. So in theory, this all sounds straightforward, but in practice, it's anything but. As I say, I'm part of the product engineering team at Focusrite Innovation, and we build audio tech products that combine hardware, firmware, and software. Historically, hardware has set the cadence in terms of roadmaps, projects, and planning. Software and firmware disciplines have come along and found it a challenge to fit the existing practices. These practices were designed around a hardware-first world, and as they have evolved, they have been optimized around the notion that iteration is expensive, change is slow, and coordination meant staying out of each other's way. But as software has become more central to the product experience, to how it feels to use, how it evolves over time, that model has started to show strain. We've seen a variety of friction points, including late integration, rework, and mismatched expectations between disciplines. The problem hasn't been talent, it was that our teams weren't designed for shared ownership. Different groups had different definitions of done, different rhythms, and different systems for measuring progress. We were collaborating at the edges, not at the core. So recently we've been looking at how we approach changing that, not through slogans or grand restructures, but through designing new conditions for how we work together. We've started fairly small. We've purposely created stable, outcome-orientated teams, building rhythms, trust, and accountability by keeping people together long enough to own results, not just deliver tasks. We've begun to focus teams on outcomes rather than functional slices. We've worked closely with our product managers to ensure that we understand the intention of the work we are delivering, the problem it solves for our customers, as well as the business value it aims for. Members of our teams remain stable across multiple cycles, ensuring a people shuffle doesn't happen after each iteration. Currently, the way we are doing this is to continue focusing our teams on the engineering disciplines, so software, firmware, and hardware. But we've set up further team-type constructs around those teams. So we call them teams of teams. Dependencies are made clear and discussed so that people who depend on them and who they depend on, we've learned to lean into the theory of constraints here and acknowledge that it's better to eliminate rather than manage dependencies. We've also looked at what we mean when we say the work is done, how these can be shared as team-wide definitions of done, and therefore minimizing any handoffs we need to do. This brings predictable collaboration, shared accountability, fewer gaps between roles, and faster onboarding of new context. Shared planning rituals help create shared understanding of why work matters before jumping into what to do. Engineering disciplines, product and design meet together at the start of each planning cycle to frame the desired goals, and each team conducts its own planning event each sprint, but not before our team of teams has agreed on the shared goal itself. Planning cycles occur at different levels or altitudes, so not only do we do sprint planning, but we also look to align around longer-term goals every 12 weeks. Again, we look to focus planning conversations on outcomes rather than handing out tasks, and we ask, what user problems are we solving? The risks and dependencies are core elements that are identified in these planning sessions. Everyone leaves with a shared sense of direction and trade-offs, not just a task list. These 12-week planning rituals have been hard to tune in and get right because they occur every 3 months. It's taken time, but we're beginning to see the payoff. There are fewer mid-cycle surprises, more cohesive delivery, and visible alignment between disciplines. We're certainly leading into people interactions over processes and tools. But by the same token, we've looked to build transparency, so collaboration doesn't rely on memory or hallway updates. A single shared board tracks cross-functional work, not just software tasks for the software team. We've adopted Jira to help us in this regard. Hardware and software dependencies are visible in one place, so the teams can manage sequencing and integration proactively. Simple, consistent updates, for example, demo recordings or progress snapshots replace sprawling status meetings. Metrics that include flow metrics such as throughput, cycle time, and efficiency, not just sprint or ticket velocity. Everyone sees the same truth. Decisions become data-informed and opinion-driven. And not opinion-driven. Finally, we have lightweight review and reflection loops. So we maintain continuous learning and adaptation without the weight of ceremony. Those metrics I just mentioned, we're discussing in joint reviews at the end of each cycle, focusing on what helped us flow as much as what slowed us down. We allow ourselves quick mid-cycle check-ins where anyone can raise issues in process or alignment. We've seen a lot of value in discussing issues as they occur rather than leaving to the end in sprint retros. But we also recognise team retros are still important. We've introduced engineering managers into our teams, bringing experience from those guys as engineers, working in teams as facilitators and coaches rather than auditing teams. They're able to surface patterns, helping the team to improve. Reflections are visible and acted upon, and we aim for one improvement carried into the next cycle, not a long wish list of things. Continuous learning becomes part of the rhythm. Trust and accountability deepen over time. So as I close the talk, what do I want you to take away? First, teams don't just happen. You have to design the conditions for collaboration. Clarity, purpose, structure, and support. That's what turns a group of experts into a real team. Second, you don't need a grand reorg to start. You can begin tomorrow by shaping how your team works together. You can make work visible across roles, bring alignment conversations forward, and check in not just on what you delivered, but how you delivered it. Third, remember that software delivery is a social system as much as a technical one. When you optimize for connection, when you invest in trust, share goals, and reflection, speed, quality, and innovation follow. So next week, when you're back in your stand-ups, or your design reviews, or planning meetings, you can ask this question. Are we optimizing and creating the conditions for a team, or are you entrusting too much to individuals? I think that one question could have the power to change everything. Thank you.